The following episode of the Carnival of Randomness is sponsored by an important message to you, the people, from Upsitnik and Associates. Every day there are forces that are taking from you, stealing from you. Your money, your time, your freedom. Immense faceless corporations, banks, credit card companies, insurance providers, government agencies, this list goes on and on. When you are under attack and facing crisis, turn to us, Upsitnik and Associates, attorneys for you, the people. When every day becomes a battle, we can advise and assist. We have been advocates for 40 years. Email us through upsitnikslaw.com or call us at 1-866-391-3299 or reach out to us through Upsitnik and Associates on Facebook for a prompt, no obligation communication and consultation. Don't be pushed around.
Hi, welcome now to the Carnival of Randomness. Once again, we are in the reality zone for another Rage-Onomics, and we have an issue here as Jeff, being Jeff, just decided to go off to Erie, PA and purchase a lacrosse team.
I thought he was going there as a representative for the New York State Board of Tourism to
Well,
get
the
people to
rumor
come
is
to New
now
York and visit.
the other Gothic Toad guys have gone down to try to get him because rumor is that our dear governor is going to try to build a wall to keep Jeff out of New York. So hopefully they will get him and he will be back. But in his honor, and we are joined luckily by the second president of the United States, John Adams, who's looking pretty damn good, getting on to be like 200 and whatever the hell you are. And
Jefferson
it's fitting
lives.
because it's like Memorial Day time and summertime to have the next president on, who I'd still take over Jimmy Carter, and he looks better than Jimmy Carter at his age. But we're going to dedicate this one, and we're going to call this Rage-Onomics, Episode 3, The Search for Bauman.
Where is he?
Where is he? But actually, you brought up a point we'll just kick off with about how ethical this state is.
Oh, yeah.
God. I missed this one. What was this?
Karen DeWitt just reported this morning, or yesterday, about how the state government ethics panel was voted to be one of the worst in the nation. Surprise, surprise.
What,
That's
a
the
New
one
York
thing about-
ethics panel was deemed not worthy?
Something about lack of transparency.
Words you don't really want to
Well,
hear.
one of the things that got me, okay, there's all the big kerfluffle in Alabama, and it's not, for me, I'm not talking about abortion, which side you're on, but a lot of people up here have been gnashing their teeth about it, and I'm looking going, okay, Alabama's schools are ranked so much better than ours.
Well, it's interesting how New York State has poured so much money into their educational system, and we continue to elect people like Governor Cuomo.
And all the rest of them.
Yeah, and all the rest of them, the
But
legislature.
the thing about it, I always say this is the problem with the system. It's the old Platonic thing. I'm smart. But who watches the watchman? Who guards the guardsman? And when you're letting these people police themselves, that's why you get a judge who can get banned, make $180,000 for doing nothing, last for years because they're watching themselves. Because they don't want to get busted themselves. Look how it takes long to take these characters down, whereas if any of us did this stuff.
Yeah, it'd be instant.
CYA.
Yep.
CYA. Cover your ass.
And I think that's the problem with it. And, we're going to be open. We're going to be ethical.
Well, it's interesting in this report from Karen DeWitt, one of the statements in it was that there was a recent meeting that was scheduled for 4 hours, and out of the 4 hours, only 12 minutes of it was made public.
What?
What is this, the Watergate?
I'm sorry, did I hear that right? 12 minutes out of 4 hours
Yes,
was
that's
made
correct.
available?
And
Okay.
what they were speaking about in that 12-minute period of time was the renovations of offices in Buffalo and New York City for the commission.
Oh, good.
Absolutely nothing to do with ethics or oversight.
Well, this is how crookery works. Well, there was one town years ago. One of the members on the town board lost his job. So what they did, they planned a clandestine meeting around 8 o'clock at night on 4th of July, which was open to the public, but gee, who's going to know about it?
Yeah, right.
And they voted themselves pay raises.
And that's special.
And then they would find, I guess people tried to find the minutes, which were stored in the library, and they were missing.
Isn't that weird how shit just randomly disappears like that? The exact shit that you need just happens to not be there anymore.
Well, it's amazing. The transparency issue, which it is absent in New York State government transparency. They talk about transparency. They talk about trying to make a better mousetrap when it comes to state government here in New York State. And yet we have constant and never-ending reminders that there's lots and lots of closed doors, information that goes on that we do not have access to, and decisions are made that we will find out sometimes weeks or months later what they were. And the bottom line is that we continue to go down this spiraling towards the ground airplane type path where New York State is just voted worst on or the top of the list of
number
the worst
one
things.
Hey, we are number one for taxes. We're number one, dude.
And we were voted least transparent in the nation. Cato has voted us the least free state in the union. And all of that stuff is sort of old news at this time, but we continue to vote the same people into office over and over again.
One of my favorite ones is Governor Cuomo goes off about Donald Trump, and here I'm not defending Donald Trump. Think what you want of him, like him, don't like him, whatever else. But I remember it was kind of funny. He's going on about, I hate Trump, he's hate. Governor, well, then why did you take $64,000 in campaign contributions from him? Are you going to give it back? No.
Yeah. Full transparency, we're not transparent.
And we'll keep your money.
Yeah, full transparency, your money is ours.
It's absolutely hilarious. It's not hilarious. It's sad, actually.
It's sad to the point of hilarity that just, I mean, you see all these people with their grassroots bullshit. Well, we need to make a change. Let's start it. No, start with where you live, not start with the country, with the whole federal government that doesn't really have any direct impact on you. We had a situation that made me proud, whereas on the same day, we had one of our councilmen get busted for money laundering. Same day, a defrocked judge declares she's going to run for assembly. Oh, I remember.
How do you feel about that?
I remember that
Why can't we do any better?
Who knows how? Well, I think the reason we can't do any better is simply because the people are distracted by their lives and, you know, which show is hot today? Game of Thrones is most recent, super hot. People pay attention to Game of Thrones like it's going out of style, and maybe it's on its last few episodes. It was, and
right? I didn't watch it, but I heard people were angry, and it made me laugh.
Well, and the funny thing is that as soon as Game of Thrones is over, people are going to be watching for the next big show to binge watch. But local government continues to, tread roughshod on people and plow their way through towns and villages. Nobody pays attention. When I say nobody, I mean that figuratively. Nobody pays attention to what's happening in local government. State government is out of control. But the most voted type of elections are the national elections when you have a president at stake, where that really affects us in a very little way, most of all.
And sadly, like in the state of New York, pretty much you can vote, say you're Republican, Libertarian, wherever you are. Most likely the Democrat's going to carry New York, so it's almost like your vote
doesn't matter.
Doesn't really. And I want to take a little issue here and see what you really think of this while they're looking for Jeff. One of Jeff's ideas is that you vote, and you always vote. One of the things I was going to ask him, and I'll ask him if they ever find him again, is, you have clown number 1 and clown number 2, so why should I endorse one of these idiots? Now, I could vote for another party if somebody else is running, but why should I just rubber stamp some guy I'm not going to like?
Right.
And you're sort of making a choice by not voting in a way because you're saying I'm very upset with the system.
Well, because that's the thing what people don't realize is that not voting is a vote in a way. It just doesn't seem like it because...
That's a throwback to the Rush song.
Yeah. Where do you think I got it from, damn it? Neil, my philosopher. But one of the things also, talking about voting, if you look at a lot of these candidates, these people in office that we're not too thrilled with, they're in because of certain things like primaries where maybe under 20%, under 10% of the electorate voted them in. Our illustrious mayor won the primary with, there was a 17% turnout.
Wow.
17%
It was
turnout.
that high?
45 minutes to an hour is just too long to take out of your life to affect local government.
And then you think about, you get some candidate, and how did this character get in? Well, did you go vote against him? Huh?
Yeah.
Wait, what's voting? Oh, okay.
Well, what's the solution, though? I mean, New York State is really on a poor path. Many other states are on the same type of path. California is right behind us.
Yeah, they're...
And so what's the solution?
Well, one of the things I was going to say, Zach had a good idea point, too.
Oh.
Should there be a requirement that an elected official actually fucking worked?
Yes. A lovely dear friend of mine, she said to me the other day, she said, when you come to power, here's one of the first things you need to do. Mandate that all politicians have to have had an actual job. because there's a certain politician in the New York City area who went from being a minimum wage bartender to the 1% in the blink of an eye.
It's so stupid for beyond.
And now we see how that's working out.
Did you ever see the meme for this darling or dear Miss Ocasio about they said, well, they had a special thing in Congress when the Mueller report comes out. They're going to do one in the form of a coloring book so she could understand it.
Well, then,
but it's embarrassing then when you get somebody like that. But that's the case again when you get somebody in there who, for
some reason.
You can argue against me, but I think she's pretty stupid. It doesn't know economics at all.
But she has an economics degree somehow.
Well,
but she doesn't understand how economics works.
Well, that's sort of the reason academia has a poor reputation among people who live and work in the real world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can talk about theories all day long and write papers on it and get into the nooks and crannies of the specializations. It doesn't mean you know what it is, even if you have a degree that says you've gone through 4 to 6 years worth of school for it.
Or as Blutarski said, 10 years of college down the drain. But
Might as well join the fucking Peace Corps.
You don't need to read any books. You don't need to do anything. Just Google back to school and watch Rodney Dangerfield's part of the economics class. Because if you have not seen this, have you ever seen this? I'll send you the clip, actually.
Back to school?
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen
when
that.
He schools the guy and he can in business class.
That's not how it works at all.
Yeah.
Because there's this real pompous professor going on about all these things, and now you understand Rodney's character.
I got to grease the local politician.
Yeah, exactly.
Rodney's character's really done this, so he's like, well, what's a widget?
It's a fictional product. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Tell that to the bank.
But you got to grease. Then you got to work off the unions.
Yeah, for those little problems that always
sell your
pop
product.
up.
How about Fantasyland? And that's how. But that's a real illustration of how it works.
It's sad. It's interesting. I'm sort of mentoring a young woman who's out west to become a business owner, and we were talking politics. As a side note, I'm a libertarian. She's a social democrat. And my statement to her was, I will only say to you this one thing on these politics, and that's you're going to stay a social democrat until you become an owner, and that will change at that point.
Did you ever hear there's a very good book by Peter Robinson. It's called Snapshots from Hell, and it's about Stanford Business School. And he said he's going to these luncheons, and everybody's a Democrat, everybody's a liberal. And he said, well, everybody, this guy actually was a speechwriter for Ronald Reagan. He comes from that.
Okay.
He's going around, everybody, and one guy talks to him, his alumni, goes, wait 10 years, and everybody's going to be, because you get in the real world and you start running a business. Like, ask her, okay, now, are you going to give your stuff away? Now, when you get a profit, are you going to say no?
Right. It's sad because she's one of the hardest working people I know, and she runs a great business right now. She's in management, looking to be an owner, and she works very hard, cares a lot for her team. However, it's misdirected, right? So she doesn't understand that the opportunity that she has in front of her is because there's an incentive to get there. And yet, if you start handing things out for free, there's really no opportunity to perform to get it because it's going to get to you anyway, correct?
Yeah, that's the idea of capitalism, creative destruction, which means you advance things, you do something different, you think of things. And if you just if you tell people, okay, sweep the floor, then you go, no, I'm gonna sweep the floor, but I'm gonna pay you. Who's gonna sweep the floor?
Well, how many times have we seen it when somebody will throw something at the trash can, completely miss, and say, well, it's not my job to pick that up. I'm not paid to do that.
And I just want to throttle those people.
And I think, unfortunately,
like, man,
and we could talk a little bit about this. One of the things I have a lot of frustrations with, I deal with my dad and going through insurance, trying to get things. And he's worked all his life. And then I'll see people, I'm having all these problems. I have my own problem with insurance because of the various things I do. And then I'll see people who are on either some kind of disability. It's how did they get them? There's one guy I'm talking about. He comes to a place my dad goes, and he'll brag about, well, I went hiking. I just put in my new deck, but he can't work.
Yeah, but aren't you on disability for like a debilitating back injury? Yeah.
I know very little about that, except that I have a relation that goes back 30 plus years who has only had 2 jobs in her life, and for very limited periods of time that she's had those jobs, has applied for disability and for SSI, but never was able to get to the point of getting it because she wouldn't show up to appointments. She just felt it was an entitlement type thing. And she's perfectly capable of physically working, but upstairs between ears, complete disaster. And I don't really know what the solution to that is. At what point do you say, okay, this person maybe needs a little hand up, and at what point do you say they need to get their teeth kicked in?
Yeah, and I always believe in that. Don't get me wrong, I always believe like people need help and to give a helping hand, but I also think, especially now we have a system that just caters, it's like Bizarro World, and it just lets all the freeloaders and everything do it.
Well, that's what I don't understand. Like, as a business owner, why are you punished for your success?
Ask Governor Cuomo about that.
You know, but that's the thing.
Governor, if you consider New York a business, look how well you've run that into the ground.
Yeah, but I mean, you think about it. Somebody can work hard, bust their ass, work countless hours of overtime, miss spending time with their family, and then they get punished by having their money taken and given to someone else who doesn't want to work. Mm-hmm. Not that can't work, but doesn't want to.
Only half of our population works. That's a pretty small number.
That's sad.
But one thing I want to bring up, and you just sort of touched on it, is recently in the news, one of our oldest restaurants, TheAntoinetta's, is taking a break for the summer. And this is well known. It's down by J Street. And I guess they're known for their red sauce, and it's a popular destination for celebrities. And,
I heard they have spectacular lasagna.
Yes. And I know it was a meeting place back in the old days. Johnny Antonelli, Carmen Bafilio, and Jerry Seinfeld came in and ate there when he was here. And they're closing for the summer. It's not, and the problem was they can't get good help.
They can't get anybody to show for an interview.
And
basically.
they don't want to.
Oh, yeah, they don't talking about.
They don't want to have a lower quality of service for their customers, so they're trying to hire people. And you said there's like, what's it called, the ghost hire percentage, something like that.
That's your percentage of ghosting. You know, when you schedule an interview with a person or a series of people, how many of them actually show to the interview? Well, I know that in our business we can schedule 20 interviews and we'll have 2 or 3 people show. That's just a really high percentage of ghosting. They don't even call or text or email to say I will not be there.
I don't get the whole rudeness. I had a thing where I had my dog's vet appointment, so I go in there. This really obnoxious couple comes in, and then I get taken to the back room, and the secretary says, "Look, they had the appointment there before you, but I'm taking you first because this is the 4th time they've called. They didn't show up 3 times, and they're late for this one."
Wow.
Now, what the heck? It's like, I think if you make it, if you can't go, you call.
Yes.
Yeah. That's just common courtesy because it's screwing over.
Except for Bauman, wherever the hell.
Well, that's a little different.
But he's Bauman,
But actually, on the hiring thing, I know somebody who was trying to hire employees at one time, and he said he would get guys coming in making all these ridiculous demands. You know, like, I want, $20 an hour and paid vacation. It's like, dude, what the hell do you think you're applying for? I said, well, my old job at the factory, I was getting $19 an hour. Like, well, why the hell aren't you still working at the factory?
And also, I've heard,
that's an honest question. If you're making that much good money, why are you not there no more?
Oh, I've had, there's one character I've known about, he's been creeping. One of the things he did was he wanted the signing bonus to $5,000 to start working, and the other one was he wanted the extra money when he showed up because he proved he was conscientious by coming into work.
Oh, impressive.
Oh, so you have to be rewarded by, he did good. He came in today.
But I've heard that all over. I was in one of those home gardening stores one time, and a guy was swamped in there, and I was talking to him, "What's going on? Don't you have any help?" And he says, "Dude, people we hire, they just don't show up."
It's amazing. Well, I think that some of the thrust of this conversation is that many people, the millennial generation is 80 million people in America, and there's a lot of really hardworking millennials. I know many of them.
I do too.
However, it's got a terrible reputation as a generation, and somewhat well-deserved reputation as a generation. That generation grew up in the time of Mark Zuckerberg and is watching Amazon become huge and
become world dominant power.
Exactly. And the view is that it's pushing a few buttons on a computer and suddenly you're wealthy. You create a landing page and you've got this massive billion-dollar idea, pushing a couple of buttons, which takes us to the conversation of the lack of tradesmen who even want to come to work. I should say want to be a part of that type of environment, it's real work. You get your hands dirty. You get calluses doing that type of thing. Right, exactly.
Well,
They need a safe space now.
I'm not going to do my sob story, but when I grew up, I can even say this.
My one feeling.
When I grew up, me and my friends would go around the neighborhood when we were kids. We knock on doors and we just say, "Hey, you need the grass cut? You need some chores done or anything?"
Did it all the time.
Then I got a paper route, and then a couple kids were lazy on the street. They'd call us, "Well, you're selfish," because we'd be able to buy like our ices and stuff. But I remember, like,
how dare you spend your money that you
one of the
earn
things
on
was my
things.
first car, which is a piece of shit old Camaro that it would leak, the door wouldn't close. I had to hold the door on the expressway. But damn it, I saved my money up and I bought that myself.
And
I
you
was
cared
really
for it
proud.
after you had it.
Yes, but it was. I still remember it was my version of the Millennial Falcon. But then I'll see. Okay, fast forward to my neighborhood. Kids graduate from high school and their parents buy them a new car.
What happened to that car a year or two later? The reality is that many people are given things by their parents, and I think that parents are totally fine rewarding their children for good behavior and for good things. However, there is a rub there, which says that if you don't work for something, you don't care for it nearly as much, right?
You know what? Because if you're given something, there's no motivation to keep it nice because, what the hell? You didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
But I'll bet you that Camaro,
I had fun. I mean, it was...
Be that as it was, you probably watched that son of a bitch like a hawk.
It was great. It had its faults, but it was,
right.
I kept it. But it was mine. I worked for it. I got it. I was proud of it. It's like, damn it, this is mine, my piece of shit.
I read a story in Reader's Digest, not that I want to admit to reading Reader's Digest.
Hey, nothing wrong with Reader's Digest.
When I was very young, like maybe 14 or 15 years old, and it was a story about a gentleman whose daughter was turning 16, and she wanted a car. So he bought her a Corvette. Well, he then had a mechanic take that Corvette entirely apart in his garage, and it was just a pile of parts. And he told his daughter, if you want this Corvette, you and I will work to put this back together, and after it's complete and functioning, it will be yours. And she did it. And she had that Corvette for 15 years.
Yeah, because of the work, the literal blood, sweat, and tears.
And this was also, I had the period, I remember, because when you're a young kid, especially a boy, like, you get into the, get your hot rod magazines, want everything. Mm-hmm. And I remember going, oh, Dad, I want a car. And I just happened to a friend of mine, too, so he got me a car. He goes, he got me a Matchbox car. He said, you want one? Go get a job and buy one.
Right, and I remember...
I would oh no, it's abuse.
Yeah, exactly, it wasn't that. Like,
what do you think of, like, they use that term snowflake and stuff, and one thing scared me about the last election where, hate Trump, love him, love whoever, whatever. When you're seeing supposed college students, our future, freaking out into safe rooms because of your presidential candidate did not win.
That was a good one, and they actually had to pull it down off the website because they caught a lot of flack. It was at the University of Michigan Law School.
Really?
Not the undergraduate. They said, well, we have the post-election safe space with beanbags and Play-Doh, and you can come and express your feelings. Like,
what are these people going to
do?
do?
This is a fucking law school.
Well, I'll mention.
And they pulled it down.
I'm not even going to mention the name of it because I'm
going to mention it.
No, the one because I'm embarrassed because I went there for
grad
school.
Was it U of R?
Oh, shut up.
Hey, I went there too. I learned a lot.
And I found out to think,
Sons
okay,
of
this is
bitches.
supposed to be almost like such a good school. I found out that they were doing slinky therapy.
Are you fucking kidding?
Slinky therapy.
Why am I still paying those assholes?
Well, it's kind of funny when you think about that story from the law school with beanbags and safe spaces and such. What are these people going to do when they become attorneys and they're working at the public defender's office and a prosecutor chews them up in a courtroom?
Right.
How is that going to affect them?
Are they going to have to go and need their PTSD training?
Well, one thing I've read like you read from a lot of businesses, and they'll ask them about the quality of people that get out of college, and they'll say they want the big job that pays a lot. They're very bad at listening. They have very bad skills, and the thing happens. They're pampered in college. They take watered down courses. They take a lot of crap courses that you have.
You leave basket weaving out of this,
unless you're going to go into basket weaving.
Underwater basket weaving.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a
you
dual
do that.
major.
So then I got a job. And then he's mean to me.
Yeah. Well, they said I had to work. Yeah. That's why you're paid. You're doing something chances are you don't want to do. That's why they give you money to incentivize you to come do
where
it.
they said you have to learn. I've read some good articles about how you have to learn the whole idea about the idea that work. And one congressman, Charlie Rangel from New York, actually used to try to hire people in his district and get them jobs. And he said, like, after 6 months, they'd all be out of jobs. And he'd say, well, what happened? Oh, those guys, they were racist. They were horrible. You know, you had to come in and punch in every day, and actually you were expected this time.
Amazing.
That's goddamn Nazis.
So I think part of the solution is that we need to reframe this concept of what it is to go to work for people, because the narrative that has been talked about for many, many years at this point is that you can become a rap star or a sports star, or you can punch a few buttons on a computer and become very, very wealthy doing that. Whereas the reality is that most work is really work. 95 to 98% of the time, it's pure toil that you don't love to do, right? With people you often don't love to do it with.
People you wouldn't even invite into your home.
And the 2 to 5% of the time, it's blissful or joyful because you've accomplished something real. But it's such a small percentage of your time.
I had a dude at Kodak when I worked there, and I felt sorry for this guy because I always think you have to try to better your situation. I would come in every day, I hate this place, 25 more years. And I'm thinking if this guy probably got kicked out by now because they got rid of so many people. But how do you go through life like that? Well, if you don't like the situation so much, you better find something else. Because
sad to be sad.
How would you get up every day? I hate this. I hate this.
I mean, the money couldn't have been that good for that kind of hatred.
No,
but I mean, still, to wake up and actually have to say 25 more years of this, there's no amount of money
not
that's
wanting
worth
to
that.
go to bed because you don't want to get up and go in the
Exactly.
next day. But one of the things I admit, I never really liked school that much. And I think one of the things, actually a hindrance to getting good employees, you got to have the worthless degree. And I think more you should get people, bring them in, train them, show that they have the incentive, and not worry about the piece of paper.
And I think we've touched on this before. It's the practical experience versus the theoretical experience.
Well, I know exactly where you're going with this, and I am in agreement with the idea that a college degree is often overweighted. However, what is valued by an employer for an applicant that has a degree is that they've been able to start, do, and finish something.
Right. I'm not saying it's completely
Hopefully
useless.
in 4 years, not 10.
Well, yeah.
Well, the average New Yorker is, 6 to 6.5 years to complete a 4-year degree.
That was like unheard
right
of
now.
in my day. It's like literally.
Yeah.
But did you see the new one now? Now they're thinking of passing a law about in New York for racial discrimination based on hair.
What?
I just saw it yesterday.
It's confusing to me. I don't explain this.
Yeah,
please.
how does this work?
I guess it's just that they can't, supposedly people are turned off or you're insensitive because somebody might have like dreadlocks or like a weird hairstyle.
That's too bad. You know, I like to take people for who they are.
I do. That wouldn't bother me.
We have people on our team that have dreads, and they're fantastic team members.
Yeah.
And it would be really sad to find out that there's an individual, and you know that they're there. They look at somebody and that guy looks like Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons. No, I don't like that guy. I don't think we should hire him. If that person who looks like Sideshow Bob could potentially be the best team member on the team, it's worth having a conversation to start that process.
I couldn't care less what they look like.
Yeah, unless you have like a big middle finger tattooed on your forehead.
But I don't like the thing
kind of
also, but
think that
well,
was
you
sort
have
of
to hire
impressive.
me or something because of this. Use it as an excuse.
Oh, yeah, well, there's that.
You know, that's the thing, too. But one of the things I was going to say, like, I remember you've told some stories about your Lake Avenue experiences.
Oh, gosh.
And how were some of those?
Lake Avenue was a special animal, let me tell you that. I worked there supervising several stores in Rochester and running the Lake Avenue store for a little over 2 years. It was literally one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
Being around the people that were in that store at the time was not healthy. The mentalities that were presented, the behaviors that we had to control were really off the charts poor. And it's sad because you have 2 to 5% of the people. You talk about the 80-20 rule. I think it's oftentimes 90-10 or 95-5 or 98-2. 2% of the people can ruin an entire area because it makes everybody else afraid. Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
I would.
You know, I always said that I always called neighborhoods very precious things. And you get, like, we had a couple neighbors brought in who were renting, and they were just trashing the house, pissing all over out, and it wrecks the whole neighborhood. And then what happens is people start leaving because you don't want to be around this, and it gets worse.
Gentrification happens. Some people are stuck there. They become poor because they can't pay the higher rents. And then what happens is over time, when you have a group of people coming in that's that 2% that ruins an area, you can have the neighborhood entirely collapse in on itself so that nobody worth any real monetary value who will keep up properties will purchase property there unless they're one of the slumlords, right, who purchase property and do minimal repairs on it. So you have these entire neighborhoods that get to the point to where the houses are falling apart, the yards are not cared for, the people who live there don't care for those things because it's not theirs to own.
And people don't realize it's almost like a socialist system in the city, whereas look at all renting versus owning. Well, there's a lot of neighborhoods, I guess the statistics, there's a lot of, number one, there's a lot of ghost houses where they're just abandoned.
It's a sad state of affairs. My girlfriend used to work for a company that processed the paperwork in foreclosures, and the last 10 years has been very, very good for foreclosure paperwork business.
I would imagine it's been something, hasn't it?
For one thing, I'm going to ask, why libertarian politics? How did you come to this?
I didn't want people telling me what to do. That's the bottom line. I didn't want people telling me.
What if I said you have to be a libertarian? Would you switch?
Well, you could say whatever you want.
I know, there you go.
The bottom line is that it would be my choice to be a libertarian. However, when I say I didn't want people telling me what to do, it really comes down to I didn't want the government telling me what to do, how to do it, when to do it, who to do it with. I didn't want – one of the things I'm very fond about in libertarian politics is that you have property rights. So if you own something, it's yours, and because somebody else says, I want a piece of that, doesn't give them the right to do that, to have a piece of that. You've worked for it. You have the choice to share it if you want, but they don't have the ability within the principles of the Libertarian Party to come and say, I want some of that or all of it and take it from you. I think if somebody works for something, it's theirs, and they have the right to either keep it selfishly or share it with others.
I use my credo a lot of times, personal freedom, personal responsibility. And I like the term once used about socialism where it says it goes out of business because eventually you run out of other people's money to spend.
So true.
That's spot on.
And you saw one of the big victories was actually Glenn Jacobs. Kane got elected mayor.
That's awesome, isn't it?
And the thing is now, people might laugh thinking this is a wrestler. But have you ever heard how brilliant he is? Have you heard him?
I have. He's fantastic.
He puts a lot of videos on YouTube. I found one, it was about 48 minutes long of him talking about, I think it was Austrian economics.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I didn't understand what it was at first, but I watched it. I'm like, oh my god, this is really interesting.
He said, and the way I look at it too is I just look at sense. I don't want to use common sense because I wish it was more common, really. But I just look at things and they make sense. And this is how it works.
Well, I worked on the campaign for Larry Sharpe for governor, his lieutenant governor Andrew Hollister last year, and one of the things that Larry was stating very regularly was that we've got to punch a hole in the system. And then if that hole gets punched in the system, somebody's got to go through the hole. And then others have to follow that person through that hole. And we just had last week the first victory from that effort. I mean, other than the fact that we had 7 times the Libertarian vote in New York State in 2018, and that we now have ballot access as a party, which I think is really fantastic. Deborah Altman, who is a friend of mine in New York City, was elected to the New York City Educational Council. So she's now going to help govern the New York City education environment, which is fantastic. We now have a libertarian voice on that council.
And I look at one of the analogies I use is like high school, whereas you have like the so-called clique of popular people, and a lot of them probably just grew up together, and really a lot of people don't give a damn, but you have all the other people, and it's really a small percentage, but they seem like they rule the school, but nobody says anything. And actually one of our teachers when we were seniors got so mad about our clique, she started going on about it's like, these people think they're such great. Nobody does anything. And I think a lot of things was just apathy. People, when we graduated, a lot of people just like, screw this, I'm out of here, I'm done, I have to see them again. But nobody really does anything, and they just go for the system. And I think one of the appeals of libertarianism, I think it's got the best of both worlds to me. It's like freedom, but it's also mind your own damn business.
And there's a responsibility aspect to it. You have to take care of your own life.
Yeah.
Many philosophies don't include
Because actually, I was listening to, going back to Glenn Jacobs, when he was running for mayor of Knox County, he was talking about what the ideals of the Libertarian Party was and what he wanted to do, and he said, well, it's never good when people have to rely on the government because the government's not going to help you. Because whenever all you do is just bitch and complain about, somebody needs to do something. Well, why don't we do something? You can't rely on somebody else to hopefully come in and fix it the way you want it to.
Well, somebody's got to do something.
Well, what would you think of? We've tossed this around a lot of times. There's a big dichotomy a lot of times between like the big populous areas and the ex-burbs and everything else. Where would you actually think of the idea of having a Western New York separated from New York City?
I love the idea personally. I would love to be able to change New York City to be a little bit more libertarian. I don't think that that's going to happen.
No, but I think it's like Churchill's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and thinking you get different results. We keep electing these casts of clowns, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And you get rid of one, you get one just as bad, and it's the old good old party machine. And understand this, everybody, a lot of things for the party and government, as we used to call the acronym the PIG, party government, is they go around looking for candidates, and it's all like this old club of people who've come up who have connections, who have the money. And that's the people who get in. It's not because they're looking for, this person's going to make a really good job. And then after that, all they want to do when they get in office, they don't give a damn. They want to just give away goodies. Vote for me, because they want to keep their job indefinitely.
Well, and don't you think it's weird, all these people that are sitting there on the internet saying, I would make a better elected official? Well, why don't you run? Why are these people that are already so much better than what we have in office, why aren't they running? No, that's the sad part is we're voting with what we're presented with, what we have to choose from, and it's sometimes it's not very good.
It's a good point, and I think that part of that conversation is that the people who would be good at the job don't want to do it,
right? Because
they're going to be involved with people they don't want to spend time with, and don't appreciate the philosophies that they carry and the lack of. The lack of transparency on these boards and offices that happen, where it's sort of a mafioso.
Really is. No, it really is.
Mafioso rules are in place where if you get into power because I helped you with it, then you have to help me later, right?
Well, that's the best one of that is I'm reading a biography on William Sherman, and if they were always
good old Bill,
and they were always
I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zach.
The old Civil War general that burned Atlanta to the ground.
Oh, the guy the tank is named after.
Yeah, Sherman Tank.
General Sherman.
They wanted him to. There was people that were pushing him to run for president. His statement was, "I will not run if nominated, and will not." Oh wait, what was it? Yeah, I will not run if nominated, and will not lead if elected.
Because if elected, I will not serve.
If elected, I will not serve. Because he knew. He was a military man. He was used to do this, and it got done.
And
he knew that's not how government works.
He couldn't get away with that. If you look at our own governor's resume, it's not very impressive. But how do you get in there, Daddy?
I was going to say, wasn't his dad some big
really,
New York politics, if I remember correctly?
If I was debating him, the first thing I'd do was governor. Number one, I'm going to use this word one, because as soon as I create one job, I've done more than you've ever done creating a job. Unless I want to spend $70 million to get, 15 jobs at that one place?
Oh, my goodness.
God, that was...
Well,
yeah, that was
so what's the solution? I mean, we have brought up an awful lot of problems in New York State. What's the solution?
Move to a different country.
That could be a solution for us, right?
I'm more and more debate moving to a different state because it gets to the point where I love the place. You've said this yourself. I love upstate New York, but how much more it's like almost being in a bad relationship where, okay, this person's, I'm going to give him another chance. I'm going to give him another chance.
Right, the Saturday night sex is amazing.
Chance.
Damn it, I want to get rid of it, but Damn those waffles they make.
Damn, I want to get rid of it. Now I'll give them one more chance. This time it'll be really different. And then, oh, come on.
And the thing is, the longer you go with the chances, eventually something really
And I'm not the
bad's
only
gonna
one.
end up
What's our
happening.
state? How much population is it lost? And how much are they saying they're going to lose?
Oh Christ! It's been an exodus out of New York lately, hasn't it?
It has. It's had 100,000 people.
And these Orwellian ads from the governor about how we're prospering. It's like the least business-friendly state in the nation, but we're prospering.
New York business. New York business.
The government is prospering just fine in New York State.
Yeah,
Even
it's
though
just-
they're getting some shit from the people who are here now, they're still prospering. However, business is not. Business is having a really hard run here in the state.
I hate to say it, but one of the things I always thought of, in terms of you need a candidate who is not mind spending his own money and gets the message out, because the only way, in some ways, that avoids the funding issue and it cuts through all them.
Well, did you actually? Speaking of that, Jesse Ventura, the former governor of Minnesota and professional wrestler, did not take political donations because he didn't want anybody to feel like they owned him.
Nice.
But he would market himself. They would have dolls and they had shirts. Our governor could beat up your governor.
Yeah, but he would say, you can give me, he would only accept donations of $100 or less because, as he put it, what the hell can you get for $100 in government? Nothing.
Right. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
So he wasn't, all these people coming in, well, here's $50,000, but, and he was having none of it. He shut it all down. It's like, that's actually kind of brilliant.
That's the big
and
problem.
shocking
We can complain about a lot of things, but the hardest thing is, how do we fix them? And I think really it's one at a time. It's like you start local, go up a little, because that's where you can make the biggest impact.
I think that's true. And I think it's a little bit bigger idea as well. This goes back to something you just said a few minutes ago, Zach, and that was whose job is it? Somebody throws the trash at the garbage can and it misses. It's not my job to pick it up. I think we've lost resourcefulness as a people. The American people grew up with resourcefulness. You did not rely on the government for anything. It wasn't there. It was almost non-existent for most people's lives.
And also, not only that, but it was looked as a part-time thing. Like you got in, it wasn't a career.
Absolutely.
George Washington, when he was president, spent most of his time on Mount Vernon, and he'd pop in there a lot.
Yeah.
And the reality is that when people are pressed to do something, they look to another party to do it. They look to another entity to take care of whatever problem was in front of them. Oh, my grass is too long. Who's going to mow it? It's your responsibility. I have to pay my bills. Who's paying those? It's your responsibility. How do you get these things done as a people if resourcefulness is gone? And I think that we need to start teaching resourcefulness to our friends and family and neighbors so that they don't think that the job is somebody else's.
Well, that's what you ever read Tocqueville's Democracy book, where he said that how long do you think America would last? He said, well, a couple centuries, because once the people in democracy realize they can vote themselves all the money out of their treasury, they're going to do so. And it's like, okay, I'm entitled, and they turned welfare and everything, now it's entitlements. But it becomes, okay, healthcare, something like that. Okay, you have a heart attack or something, make sure you get treatment. All of a sudden, oh, I have a sneeze, now I'm going to have to pay, I'm entitled to pay for that. And it goes down that slippery slope.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
That period of a few short
Because
years.
now the ER is basically being treated like a waiting room.
I'm entitled to this, and all of a sudden, now it becomes, okay, what is a really necessity to live? Food, shelter? No, I need my cable.
Yeah, that's the thing. All these people, I need my cell phone.
And
I
then
need
look,
my
it's
cable.
all, it's
I need
all
my
about
internet.
money.
No,
It's
you
all
don't.
these different things coming in wanting a piece of the pie.
There's many people talking nowadays about how you can't make it on lower wages. And I think that making it on lower wages has always been difficult. It's never been easy. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 25 years ago, people didn't grow up expecting to have the $1,000 smartphone or the $120 a month cable bill. They didn't expect that they must own a car. It was something that you earned most of the time. And the reality is, when people get up today as youth and they get into the world, they can't make it on their $12.75 an hour because they need to afford every time a new iPhone comes out, they need to have it. They need to have a $120 a month cable bill. They need the $12 a month Netflix bill because they've got to have their television. Of course,
I saw
they have
one. Okay, one night I just won some stupid show on TV, and I'm sort of doing something else. I had on background noise.
You leave American
But it was
Idol
like
out of
it was
this.
like a car dealer show, and they had this woman on, and I've never gotten a car over 10,000 in my life. I get what works, and I try to and I run them into the ground. this woman on there, she was looking around. There's all these perfectly fine cars. There was a $60,000 car she couldn't afford, but she's going to get like massively in debt. But she had to have it.
Well, and that decision probably affected her for the next decade in her financial life.
And I look at people, why don't you spend lots of money on cars? It's like, dude, well, what are you paying a month? You know what? I'm paying a month.
Well, because it's like, really, other than the aesthetics, what is the difference between like a Honda Civic and a Ferrari? It gets you where you need to go.
Well, the other
in
thing
a
about
fashion.
that is too is like I've read a
Honda
lot of
storage.
business things where they
it
tell
has
you
better
that
mileage.
where they
And
tell
it's
you
more
that
reliable.
one of the other things I've heard a lot of people will say one of the things you should do is just if you're in a big city, don't get a car.
No.
You don't have to get insurance. You don't have to pay for the car. Just take public transportation or walk.
But then therein lies the issue of what if your city, like Rochester, has shit public transport?
Well, there's Uber and Lyft. Uber
Well,
and Lyft is-
but for how much longer with how they're going?
Well, we'll see. You know, it's interesting that we're at the lowest level of new car sales in the nation today for the last several years. And two of the reasons that have been cited were Uber and Lyft, because it's very inexpensive to take one of those rideshare services a
definitely.
few blocks away as opposed to owning a vehicle to drive 12 blocks.
That's very true.
Yeah. And so that's a market solution to not owning a car. Interesting libertarian issue there.
No, that's the thing. Somebody saw the need and filled it.
But I think
And
also
I
one of
applaud
the
them
things
for
is,
it.
and actually that's one of the things too,
Though
is I
it's
think there's
tanking.
so much, if you go against the grain, the so-called orthodoxy, I think they try to shut you down or heckle you or anything else because they don't want to lose their power. And we have a basically corrupt oligarchy in my view. Now I'm starting to sound conspiratorial.
Excellent use of oligarchy, by the way.
But I think it is. It's not a democracy. It's an oligarchy in a lot of ways.
It really isn't, because we can't directly vote on a lot of shit that gets passed. And isn't the base definition of democracy is that
And every time I
the
see,
people
it's like,
rule,
okay, what
and
I
we
ask is,
don't.
where's the money go? It's not about protecting. It's not about this. It's like, where's the money go? Where's the money go? Where's the money go?
Right? Where does it go?
Well, I don't think it's an oligarchy at this point, but I do think it's a lot of crony capitalism.
No, that's the
cronyism.
term I use all the time. People go, well, no, not real capitalism, crony capitalism.
Yeah.
We as a country don't practice capitalism. We practice mostly crony capitalism. There's, if you're talking about small business, somebody owns an ice cream shop, they're not buying off a lawmaker anywhere. However, if it's a large national company and they want to have their offices here in New York, and they're going to say, you
gotta
need
grease
to
the
give
local
us
politicians,
right?
and
Back to school with Rodney Dangerfield, Amazon comes in and says, we need $70 billion. Oh, we don't think that's enough. We're going elsewhere. That sort of gift would never go to a business that was already in existence in New York State.
No, absolutely not. Especially a small business.
Right.
Yeah, that's. Have you heard Bauman complain about that enough?
I can hear him from Erie right now. Those sons of bitches!
That poor guy having to navigate the New York State governmental affairs to get the business registered and up and running. Oh, that's awful.
How dare you want to
But that's
try
the
to better
thing, and one of my
yourself in
friends,
our state by
one of my
hiring our
friends
people.
was sort of debating this with his son, and he's saying about how people are just fake and everything. His son said, "No, you know what's happened? We've lowered our standards. What do you think about that? Is there truth in that, or?"
Explain a little bit more for
Well, that's
me,
what
Rob.
he just said. He said the problem with society now, we just lowered our expectations and standards. For example, like say you go to the store and you're at checkout. I had a woman there waiting for her M&Ms, playing with her phone while she's checking people out, talking. And I think in a lot of stores, you'd have people before you're out of here, do your job. Now we just...
Actually, I told you about my sandwich incident in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
It was, I went to a place, not going to say the name, to get a sandwich. This girl was not paying attention to me, just putting on whatever she wanted. I'm allergic to seafood. She's putting tuna on there. And she just throws it at me, and I said, I'm not paying for this. So the manager comes over. Is there a problem? I said, yeah, your employee did not make my order correctly. I'm not paying for this. Well, sir, she's trying her best. That was
It's about performance.
that
It's
was
not about
literally the response that he gave me. So I knocked it on the floor, and I said, well, she can try to clean it up.
Nice.
And walked away. Yeah, because, and you're right, a lot of people be like, well, she is trying. And I think that's probably what they meant, is that we're more tolerant of a lot of bullshit, a lot more bullshit.
So it goes back to the Antoinetta story. They shut their business down for the summer so they can prepare their staff for fall business and get people trained and hired to do that business without lowering their standards that they have agreed to provide their customers over time, correct? And so the reality is that if they wanted to get a higher quality team member on their team, maybe they'd have to pay more to do that. However, if you go to Antoinetta's and you buy lasagna for $14.99, and I don't know what the cost of lasagna there
Probably
is.
around there.
So $14.99 for a dinner of lasagna, and they're paying $12 an hour to their team, plus perhaps a server wage, which is lower, like a tipped wage. If they were to pay more money, they would have to charge more money for the lasagna. So who of us is willing to go and pay $23.99 for the same lasagna so that they can have a higher quality team member? And I think that the answer is not many of us. There will be a percentage of people that do it. I don't think there'll be enough of a percentage to keep them in business. And so it goes down to the standards that you're talking about. Do we continue to provide the same level of service for the same price that we have been charging over time? Or do we change our prices and hire a higher quality team member?
Do you ever hear the old Saturday Night Live skit with Jimmy Carter? He said, yeah, inflation. The bread will cost $100,000, but who cares? We'll all be millionaires.
Perfect point.
Yeah.
But there's another, and I think, again, we could go on. We should do one show with if we ever get the Toad guys back, about government waste and everything. And one of my things is all these, and I think one of the things about academia that they said is a lot of these people get out and they have no skills, anything else. So the establishment provides jobs for them. So we had a thing by our local media where they decided to cure poverty in the area, and they did nothing. They had an anti-poverty campaign. They got a guy, some academic paid him over $230,000. The results, the big thing was, how can we cure poverty? They came up with, we're going to paint 9 encouraging murals around the city. And they're blowing our money. This is the number one. Why don't they pay for it? And now they're going to go after trying to fix our schools. Why do we fund this crap?
Well, how many more murals is it going to take to fix the public school system?
I think we see them, too.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
That's again about what some of your money is going for, crap like this. And the thing is, they fail. And all these people, you could look at their positions and look at their history of failure, and they're still got a job. I know one of the good old public sort of things, found out the person they hired, he drove every business he was in before that in the ground, yet he got another job.
Well, whoever hires that person deserves what they get.
But they're used to getting the money, the public funds. That's the problem. It's not like they're held to a thing where, look, you're either going to do well or you're going to go under.
Right. There's no rock bottom in that aspect, as it were, because they're just going to keep getting what they want. So there's no motivation for them to continually improve and find better ways to become more efficient, because they're going to get their money no matter what.
It's sad because in the real market, there's incentive for improving things, right? You have higher sales, you have right. better products, you have better penetration of the market. And Apple's a perfect example of that, where they have been cannibalistic of their own products. Creative destruction is what you called it earlier, Rob.
Well, I read it in an economics book.
Oh, nice. Well, they've creatively destroyed previous product to replace it with a new and better product. And at first, it was not a very intuitive concept for most people. However, what do we have today? I received an Apple product 2 weeks ago, opened the box up. The packaging on this product was absolutely spectacular. The computer that I opened up, an MacBook Air, was just in pristine condition. I mean, it's brand new. It should be in pristine condition. But it was very, very clear that this company took care of making this product.
That's why I like by Amazon and some other stores now, where I just pop on the internet, order my thing, go pick it up, and they send it to me, and I have no complaints. But remember, in this era, say I order a pizza and I order, what do you like on your pizza usually?
All sorts of things. Let's go pepperoni, mushroom sausage, and extra cheese.
Well, I'm not going to repeat
Damn, I kind of want that for dinner.
I'm not going to. So I get that. So I get it delivered. So they show up, they give it to me, I open them up, it's nothing on it but cinnamon rolls. So am I supposed to say, well, they tried. I'm not going to complain.
Well, the guy drove all the way here,
I'm not sure I'd be upset about getting cinnamon rolls.
I did steal that from sort of real life, because one time we were in the drive-thru at a place, and I think we ordered like the burgers. We got away and we got cinnamon buns.
Or the one
They
time
fuck you at the drive-thru.
yeah, somebody came back from
Lethal weapon.
one of my friends came back from the drive-thru, opened up his double cheeseburger, and it was a spoonful of fried onions. That's it. That's all that was in the damn.
But do you
That's
know,
a
like, if
bad
anybody would
lunch.
complain to like a place like that and say, "Well, this has nothing on it," but they tried their best.
Sir, you don't seem to understand that our employees are held to the highest standards of trying. And
I'm going to use that at work now.
please feel free.
But I think we
I
have
like
to.
that.
We have to do things like that. Like if you get really bad service or something, like put it on Yelp. Don't patronize the place.
And that's what I've always said. People need to be held accountable because how else are they going to learn? If they continue to do something very poorly and nobody says anything, they're not going to improve.
Correct. And if one person says something to a service person, as an example, say, you don't do your job well and this is why, and then they walk away, that service person might think, well, that's only one person, screw that guy.
Yeah.
Right? But if they hear it from 25 people, maybe they'll get the hint that they need to improve the process.
Right.
I've gotten to the point, literally, I'll call for a manager these days. Like, for example, fast food place I was at that actually does very good service by me. I actually called the manager because I want to compliment the people because I don't think they hear enough of that.
That's the thing. How often do you call the manager to give a compliment? Not very. They hear, can I speak to the manager? They think, oh, this guy's going to bitch about something.
And a pleasant surprise when you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as always, we're continuing as we search for him, the spirit of Bauman of being so happy and cheery. And...
Yeah, but I have done that. I have called a manager, and this poor girl at the checkout line, she did a fantastic job. Because I'm always the one I put stuff in the order that I would like it in the bag. The softer stuff near the back so it doesn't get smushed by the 2 liters. I'm not putting the whole roasted chicken next to the ice cream.
Oh, good idea.
But she was like, do you want me to, and she was asking how I wanted it bagged and this and that.
It wasn't like the one that's like, where's the watermelon? I heard, oh, it's on top of the eggs.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, she is doing a fantastic job. And she's like, I've never had anybody say that. And I was like, well,
you have to
that's
relate.
a damn shame.
Okay, you have to relate just one before we close it up, before people start saying, where's Jeff? You guys are much nicer, but you have to tell the one restaurant story about the croutons.
Oh, Jesus Christ. And here's the thing. This place is still open. And it's
you
doing
gotta hear
business.
this one, John.
We stop at this restaurant, and it's an Italian place. Ordered, start with a salad, lettuce, and ranch dressing. That's it.
It's a salad at its
Yeah,
basic,
it's
right?
like, okay, that's not a huge deal. They haven't been open long. The person I was with ordered garlic pasta. It came with croutons in it. The goddamn salad didn't have croutons in it, but the pasta did. And then, for dessert, I was like, oh, I'm getting a tiramisu. Out comes a margarita glass with what appeared to be very poor quality melted ice cream.
Oh, boy.
With a burned Crisco tweel and coffee grounds. And it's like, you know what? I got to the point, I was laughing. I was like, you know what? Never going to this place again. I tell people to stay away from it. It's still goddamn there.
That's too bad.
But that's one of the ones. We'll have an episode sometime, like a weird restaurant story.
Oh, man. There's going to be some good ones.
But one of the things we'll sort of end on is always you'll be back soon, I'm sure, and causing more trouble. And if we find Bauman.
Hopefully we'll find him.
And
if he's not avoiding us.
Well, if he gets back in the state, it's like, oh, you're hypocrites. Oh, you don't want to build a wall down there, but you'll build one. Oh, but then the problem is, probably, we want to keep that guy out. And a lot of people will probably say, well, him? Okay, I can see it a little bit.
Poor Bauman.
But
hi, Jeff, when you listen to this.
Any good shows you're going to see this summer? Any concerts you're kicking ass?
I'm going to see a Volbeat in Sturgis, South Dakota in August. I'm kind of excited about that.
Is it Floggy Molly and Social Distortion coming?
Yeah, they will be, is it Buffalo? I think they're coming to Buffalo.
I was going to say, what? Floggy Molly coming to Rochester again?
Yeah, I love that band. They are fantastic.
Any Scorps news?
They're touring Europe right now, and they are setting up dates later in the summer for Brazil. which I would love to see the Scorpions in Brazil. That would
I'd just
be
love
fantastic.
to see Brazil.
Well, I want to see.
Scorpions would be icing on the cake.
I want to
Or
see
some-
the band, the Scorpions. I don't want to see any Scorpions in Brazil.
That's
Right.
a fair point.
Right.
Well, I'm actually going to go see Alice Cooper at Hailstones.
I've seen him a few times. Fantastic show.
The thing was, it was something called the Concert Week, Concert Appreciation Week, so I got the tickets really cheap, too.
Nice.
It's awesome. It's fantastic. The last time I saw him, he came out on stage, and the first song and a half that he was playing, he acted like an old man. He moved like an old man.
Well, he is an old man.
Right. But after song 2 was all the way through, and he started song 3, it was like, bam, all of a sudden he was
transformation.
right
Well, I guess he
in.
gets
Yeah.
right into character, too. I guess he says nobody talks to him before the show. He transforms into Alice.
And then he goes and plays golf.
Yeah.
It's a great show, though. You got to.
I have
yeah.
heard that he is a phenomenal show.
But hopefully
one
the Scorps will come around. That'd be great if you saw him in Brazil.
I don't think I'm getting there this year, Rob. I would love to, but
I didn't want to either. But the one thing on your travels before we go, too, just a little lightheartedness. Have you found any interesting cuisine, like when you were down south and everything? Because I know, like, when you've gone to the conferences.
I was in North Carolina a few weeks back and went to Gus's Chicken in Charlotte. No, I'm sorry, that was Memphis. I was in Memphis several weeks ago.
I've heard of Gus's Chicken.
Gus's Chicken. It was the most amazing fried chicken I have ever eaten in my life. It was absolutely
You ever have
spectacular.
Church's Chicken when you're down there?
I never have.
I was in South Carolina, and I didn't really feel like eating at the hotel. So I got in the car and drove around, and I see Church's Chicken. I'm like, all right. And I go in there, and damn, that was good fried chicken. And they didn't understand my fascination with chicken and waffles. They're like, why do people in the North know about that? Like, how do people in the North know about that? That's a Southern thing.
Well, like Hush Puppies.
I didn't have any of those.
I
But
was
definitely
some
chicken and
Hush
waffles. I had that when I was in Memphis 2 days before Gus's, and I thought the waffle was okay. The chicken was spectacular. I did not have bad fried chicken in Memphis.
I think you're actually kicked out of the state if you have bad fried chicken in Tennessee.
Yeah, that's the thing, you know.
But
we will talk a lot about those. There's always more stuff to talk about unless this world changes. So,
yeah, that'll happen. Otherwise, yeah,
so we can't play it, but if you could play a Scorpion song, what would you play?
the zoo.
Zoo's great. I love Big City Nights. There's just my favorite song is. It was about the Jimi Hendrix death, and his former girlfriend wrote the poem, which then Uli John Roth, who was the lead guitarist for Scorps back in '71, I think it was, and he wrote the song called "We'll Burn the Sky." That is my favorite Scorpion song of all time. It's just an absolutely spectacular song. The funny thing is that if you watch the video of them playing live and watch Klaus Meine, the lead singer, dance, that's basically how I dance. It's a complete spaz out. I have no rhythm whatsoever, and he was like flailing his arms.
There you go. Find that one on YouTube and watch that.
Didn't he play the game with you with the tambourine the one time?
Yeah, he was going to throw it to me, and then he just shook his head and said, I'm not going to throw it to you.
And note to Klaus, Rudy, and everybody, we talked about you, we promoted you, we didn't play your music.
Yeah, so I'll get a
Give
copyright.
us the rights. Give us the
I'll
rights.
get a copyright claim from everybody else, but not you guys.
No, come on, we'll all do. We're not worthy.
Right.
But thanks a lot, man.
Hey,
I hope it
John,
was
good
fun.
seeing you again.
Thank
We'll
you very much.
We'll see you
Appreciate
again
the time.
soon.
And how can you get plugs, earplugs,
Yeah, you have
hair
anything to
plugs?
plug?
Well, number one, about how libertarian stuff. If you think you're interested in hearing about it, give it a listen. Where can you get a little whole information from them?
Well, you can search Larry Sharp, New York. You can search Andrew Hollister. You can search just basically Libertarian Party of New York State. You can search Libertarian Party for the U.S. You can get an awful lot of information there. Reason.com has Cato, all libertarian organizations. Reason.com has some absolutely fantastic podcasts. Cato's got some really incredible blog posts and videos that really get into the meat.
Find some Glenn Jacobs speeches too. They're really good. Seriously,
He's good.
He is.
And the thing
and
is,
he
again,
doesn't reference wrestling except
and the
at the
thing
beginning.
about it
and then he
is, just
launches.
give it a listen and see what you think. You may like something, you may not, but open your mind to it. Think about how things are.
But the
think
thing
about
is,
the beginning.
regardless if you go that way or not, at least it's another
And think
viewpoint
about
that
like
you can
wherever you live, look at your politicians and go, how many years have you been in office? Has my neighborhood gotten better or worse?
Well,
Zach, I think that the reality is that, other viewpoints really aren't good. Isn't that message.
Oh,
of the
wait,
world
no,
today.
that's right. That's what they tell us. My viewpoint, good. Your viewpoint, your viewpoint.
And how's it going
fascism.
in the anything ribbon cuttings? Anything fun for like openings, pizza stuff?
Well,
They'll. Plus, also, if you have a pothole, you want it filled.
Paving for Pizza. Pavingforpizza.com. Vote for your town. Voting is actually over, but you can call your local Domino's and find out if they're able to sponsor a Paving for Pizza locally. We actually just acquired 14 new stores in New York State.
Are they pizza places or
the
other
franchise
stores?
that I work for? They are pizza places. They were Domino's. They're now Domino's again. And I was happily in Ithaca onboarding a new team yesterday. Last week I was in Utica and Rome. And the other parts of the team were up in Watertown and Fort Drum. So expanding the company.
Oh, the other thing,
Making a name.
how did that opening go in Fairport a bit back? Or is it by Fairport, East Rochester?
Yeah, 785 Fairport Road in the village of East Rochester. That store's doing well. We're happy to be there. Our former enemy closed their location there. We
Gee, I wondered
negotiated.
who that was.
We negotiated with the landlord and took over that position, and we're very happy to be in East Rochester and Fairport area.
So thanks for making pizza great again.
Thank you.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there. And you heard the Scorpions, but you didn't hear the Scorpions.
You heard about
For
them, but
all
you
of us,
didn't hear them.
Hey, Jeff, wherever you are, I'm sure you're not missed by a lot of the officials here, but
Climb,
we'll see
climb the wall.
See ya.
And on that note, all right, gentlemen, thanks again. We'll see you later.
Thank you. See ya.